Okay, got it. Yep, perfect.
Alrighty. My name is Sarah Lowe. I'm a student at Biola University. I'm here with Mr. Scarbrough from Fox Sports. And we'll kind of just be talking about his career, talking about any insights he might have for those of you who are looking to get into the sports industry. So just to kind of get us started, how did you get into the sports industry? Kind of what directed you to follow that path?
Great. Well, good afternoon, Sarah, and good to see you. And I'll say that, I think like many of us, who gravitated to sports, even if we didn't major in it or whatever, major in journalism, it's a little bit of that passion and knowledge. And as you begin to look at the industry, you realize it's more than like being an athlete, and then you realize it's more than being on air as a play-by-play guy, which is how we probably first get our first entry into sports as media as a vocation.
Mhm.
And we understand there's a lot of different moving parts, whether it's production behind the scenes, whether it's marketing or the advertising side, where folks kind of build up the events. But I just think that I had a passion and interest in sports, a lot of knowledge as a young sports fan, thanks to my older brother. And then as I looked a little deeper, I was a journalism major. I was, I really was thought I would do international news or straight news. And then as I started working in the newspapers as an editor and things, I just said, you know what, sports is kind of my passion. It's fun. I always helped out the sports department. So when I had a chance to move, from a copy editor to a sports copy editor, I jumped on it. And in fact, I
Okay.
was working in California, and I got my first sports journalism offer from Newsday in New York, and I grew up in New Jersey, outside New York, so it was all my teams. So I got to go home and do the Knicks and the Yankees and the Mets and the Devils from New Jersey and the Islanders from Long Island. So and a couple of the football teams. So for me, it was easy because my first offer was, oh, I get to go home and edit stuff about my favorite teams. So for me, it was a natural interest, and then of course one that made sense as far as where I wanted to be, and I was fortunate enough to end up in the New York market.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's kind of where you started. And then where are you now? Kind of like what are you doing at Fox Sports and what are your
Great question.
responsibilities?
Great question. Well, I have a couple of them, kind of two chapters, one which is newer than the other. But I'm the executive editor at Fox Sports, so I joke to people that I run the editorial at a place that doesn't do news and journalism anymore. I'm the top journalist at a place that doesn't do news. So the primary focus of my job is I'm kind of like a content supervisor slash talent coach. So I look at what we're talking about each day and how we're handling it, and especially sensitive subject like George Floyd this past year, Colin Kaepernick's protest, the incidents involving athletes, whether it's domestic abuse or whether there's jurisprudence or even somebody just getting sued. My job is to position our talent to be expert in those things and to not kind of go down a path that we're not familiar with. And of course, sports is everything. So sports is business, and sports is
Yes.
legal, and sports is crime, and sports is
Yes.
social justice and all these things.
Mhm.
So I think by nature, the people who I work with know that this is a part of sports. At the same time, they're not necessarily experts in the courtroom or experts in jurisprudence or experts in even COVID protocols for a great example. So that's where I kind of wade in and just make sure that we don't go too deep, or we don't
Mhm.
to alienate the fans who don't know also, or that we also don't put ourselves in a position to sound like we don't know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
And so sometimes it's just like stay away from that because we don't know what we're talking about, or me and my team kind of lay out the high points of what they need to do to educate themselves about it, so that they don't kind of step in it, so to speak. Um,
Yes.
and then we have partners, we have advertisers, so we also don't want to like sit there and talk about some product that we think is terrible and we find out they're advertising with us. And then,
Right.
if I may, Sarah, the other job I've done more recently is I'm chair of our inclusion council in Fox Sports. So
Cool.
we've really taken on a lot of responsibility to look at how we hire, look at what information people who want to get promoted have. So that's a little bit of the inclusive workplace, staff development. We've also done programming. We've done a show called Fox Sports Voices. It's just completed its third episode, and it's really highlighting athletes doing work in their community. So we
Mhm.
wanted to take some of the events of the past year, and also looking at how we want to orient ourselves to include everybody, to
Yes.
find these stories, so that it's kind of another stripe for Fox Sports. And we've always been good at storytelling, but now we literally like, hey, let's stop and remind folks that some athletes are the best people and here's what they're
Yes.
doing to show you that. So that's kind of my dual responsibility, and I think one begat the other because I was so expert in these topics. when we talked about, hey, how are we going to do inclusion and look at a few things that Fox Sports can achieve. They're like, well, let's use this guy because he's been telling us how to talk about it for 4 years. So maybe he can tell us how to behave in our workplace. So that's a summary, albeit long-winded, of the things I do.
That's awesome. And do you have a favorite kind of like part of your job in terms of what you do, whether it be the inclusion or kind of
Mhm.
looking and researching into all the different topics that you're working with? Like, what would you
Mhm.
say is like your favorite part?
That's a great question, Sarah. And I would say it's two-headed. The best part of the job is watching something on air that I've had an impact in and that I've
Yes.
had impact on, excuse me. And knowing that if I had not like had that conversation with Shannon Sharp or Skip Bayless, or if we didn't put together that Voices show, that it wouldn't be on. So I think there's a little bit of
Yeah.
satisfaction there. And I think the part I enjoy the most is really just interacting with producers and the talent,
Mhm.
because we're just trying to get it right. So it's good to kind of sit down and say, listen, when we do this, it's got to go X, Y, Z. And so
Mhm.
it's good to have influence, and it's good to exercise that influence. And
Yes.
so I think that's what we all want, impact and influence. And so when I feel like my influence is landing, I feel like
Right.
I'm like happy that I came to work that day. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great too. I'm sure you have like a great team where you can kind of bounce ideas off of each other and kind of workshop it all together.
Yeah, you can't do this. You can't do jobs like this by just staring at the four
Exactly.
walls in your office and going, "Hey, this is going to come to me." And it's important to like involve some folks, like somebody might come to me and go, "Hey, what do you think about this George Floyd stuff?" Oh, you're African American, you have an opinion, right? So everybody thinks
Yes.
thinks I want to be expert in that. But conversely, if it's a women's issue, I have a great woman who works on my staff, and
Yeah.
I don't try and figure it out myself. I say, "Hey, what do you
Right.
think about this?" Or so and so said this yesterday. How did that hit for you? Or, "Hey, I just talked to so and so, and I think he's going in this direction. What do you think?" And I might get the, "Oh no, call him back. Don't let him go in that direction." So
Yes.
so I think, just by example of my position, we're all smarter with somebody else kind of looking in the fishbowl and
Oh, yeah.
telling you how to do it. And so I'm smarter when I have other people, on my team or my peers who come to me and say, "Hey, we want to figure this out," or,
Mhm.
here's my suggestion. So, with everything, it's always better to be collaborative. And
Oh,
so
for sure.
collaboration is the victory, you
Yeah.
know?
So kind of going off of that note, what are kind of some key lessons you've learned as you work through the sports industry and as you've addressed different topics that have come up over the years?
Well, I'd say that important lesson is, look before you leap, because
Yes.
we're in the opinion business, the shows I work on. And so a lot of times it's really important to kind of, if you're going to go off, you need to be right. So the whole point is like,
Yeah.
no, 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 that you have the facts straight. And so I think that's important. I also think that, especially for some of our young audience, it's important to keep learning when you like, especially you break into sports and you have that first job. Hopefully people look at you and say you've done some things before they give you the job, like, be a leader on your campus, whatever facilities they have, use
Yeah.
them and create some output. But then when you get the job, you might say, "Oh, I know TV because I learned it at school, and I did, and I watch your network." But the real victory is when you like learn about the place that you work, like what do they do and how do they do it, and then
Yes.
what are you not doing that you can learn so you can move on and up, or just diversify your experience. So you may
Exactly.
stay at the same rank, but if you do a one job Tuesday, another job Wednesday, another job Thursday, you're growing because you're not kind of in that rut. So I would say
Yeah.
that an important lesson for young folks breaking into the business is to keep creating lessons, keep
Yes.
learning,
Yeah.
looking around the room and saying, "Oh, that guy, he's got a cool job. I want to do that." Well, you got to learn what that job is, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's not as cool as you think. So it's always
Yeah.
important to land and learn and keep kind of looking around the room and saying, what do they do here? It's not as simple as who gets promoted here and who
Mhm.
who advances. It's really like, just become, you want to be the person that people are talking about in a positive way. Like, man,
Right.
that's Sarah. She came here and she was doing A and B, and now she's doing C, D, and E.
Yeah.
And we needed to do G, so she's on the right track. So I think
Mhm.
it's really important to kind of understand where you are and what they do, and to gain
Mhm.
something from that. And then and
Yeah.
then and then lastly, it's to have fun. I mean, and
Yes.
I don't mean that like, "Hey, it's cool, it's just have fun." But at some point, if it's becoming like drudgery, you got to kind of find joy in it. You got to find
Yeah.
the things that make you go home and go, "Man, it was a good day."
Mhm.
Or, production values are high at a place like Fox Sports, so you can drive
Yes.
yourself crazy with all that you didn't do or what could have been better. But the whole
Right.
point is you want to wake up and be eager to get back in there and either
Yes.
do it better or do it well again, or just
Mhm.
to see your colleagues who are working as hard as you are.
Exactly.
So try to enjoy it, try to have fun, with anything you do, and then it's not like you're working.
Yeah. I think it'll definitely show through too in your work. If you're enjoying it, your work will show it. And if you're
Yeah.
not, you can kind of see the little drop-offs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And sometimes you have to remind yourself, like I have this mantra, and this is maybe the last part of this. It's just sports, and by that I mean not that sports is minor and not it's not a lot of work, but there's so many other jobs you could be doing. You know what I mean? And so when you sit there and go, oh my God, I worked 12 hours yesterday, it's like, yeah, but you worked on sports. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
oh, I had to get up at 4 o'clock this morning, which I get up pretty early, not 4, but I get up at 5. And
Yeah.
and get in front of these morning shows. And I guess they go, oh my God, I got to get up every morning at 5. It's like, yeah, but you're getting up to do sports and have fun and deliver a little bit of delight to the audience. So my point is that's a good mantra. If you want to get in sports, you're gonna bust your butt and you're gonna work hard. But
Yeah.
just remind yourself that it's exactly what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool too because you see the athlete side of the sports, but you don't realize all the people kind of behind the scenes are doing the same thing. They're busting
Mhm.
their butts working just as hard as the athletes for the productions to be able to go on.
Yeah, that's a great observation. That's a great lesson from Sarah in this little interview, which is there's a lot of layers to how sports gets done and where you can land in it, and there's so many different ways to crack the code, so to speak. And people get caught up in it. Am I an athlete or am I on TV? And that's it. And it's not really it. There's so much more to like just putting on a sporting event and all the multiple jobs there that have nothing to do with the broadcast side of it, and then all the broadcast jobs. So just understand there's so many interesting jobs to do, and my career, because I started as a brief reporter, but I've been an editor my whole career, even as a youngster. And so I just tell people, like, look, don't be afraid to be the inside person. You don't get a byline. Your face isn't on TV, but you're always in demand, because if you learn the skill and the craft, it always requires what you do to create a production, to create a news section or sports section in a newspaper, to run a website. It's just
Yeah.
always understand that there's nothing wrong with being behind the scenes, because it's just sports.
Yeah. And especially as technology evolves too, I'm sure you're always learning, trying to keep up with all the new softwares and programs and working on all that.
Yeah, that's another thing, and that's about that learning. Stay
Yeah.
relevant, because the audience is moving. They're in different places, and if you just think they're just in front of a TV or even a website. Remember websites back in the day?
Yes.
So the point is, even just putting everything on a website is not enough, because you got to
Right.
find people where they are, whether it's phone, whether it's tablet, whether it's streaming, etc. So just always be aware that the platform you're on now is going to change, and be ready for that change. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then kind of what would you count as like highlights from your career, whether it be in sports or behind the scenes? What are some
Mhm.
like highlights that you're really proud of or accomplishments you've had?
Well, I mean, there's one that was painful, which was I was on a team that earned the Pulitzer Prize for our coverage of Columbine, the
Mhm.
tragedy, when I was at the Denver Post, and that was, of course, a really really tough couple of weeks. But we played our part. Sports played a big part in how we kind of broke down the cliques and everything at the high school, and
Right.
then we all kind of shoveled a little bit of type, to make sure we got those sections out. And then I'd say that you know. Working at ESPN.com. I was the editor in chief there. It was a really fun job. We kind of, took that site from, hey, let's publish a lot of AP stuff, and let's, mimic our network, to creating our own kind of news gathering organization and columnists, and page two, which was more of our commentary page. And so
Okay.
that was really fun. But I'd say one of the most fun things was I worked at Comcast too, as a digital the VP for one of our sports networks, Versus, which is now NBCSN, and I got this wild idea about, wouldn't it be great if we had the Tour de France, we had rights to it. So wouldn't it be
Mhm.
great if we could like stream the Tour de France? And so I
Yes.
just started asking questions on my own, and I had a great team, like a guy named Jack Jackson who worked with me too, and some folks from Garmin, the location software,
Uh-huh.
and we just kind of put together this app, online, on the website, and also on phones and tabs, that basically live streamed the event with
Oh,
biometrics and all this
wow.
kind of stuff. And the reason that was so cool is because I didn't know much about any of the steps that they took there. You know what I mean? I made
Yeah.
maybe about two of them. I knew about streaming, and I knew about, that you have to have like bandwidth to be able to deliver stuff. But
Yes.
like the satellite feed and negotiating the
Mhm.
video, and then delivering it to the Vivix lines and out to everybody, was
Yeah.
like this whole tour of operations
Mhm.
for me. And so, it sounds like a very micro story,
Yeah.
but for me, it was about, like, even at that stage of, hey, I'm in charge of the whole website, I'm doing all the digital all stuff, I still had the chance to kind of go back up and learn step by step how some things get put together. And so that was really rewarding and definitely a highlight. And then I'd say, coming to work at Fox and hitting that Fox lot every day and working with the kings of football as we are is really been fun. And so I gotta use a more relevant or more recent example to say that's really been a nice how do we say, I'm not gonna say finish, nice landing spot, to kind of end up here. And it's really not so much about what I do every day, but just that it's good people, it's a good environment, and you want to feel good about that. And you get that, it's hard to trade it in.
Exactly. And kind of, I've seen your journey as a little bit as you've kind of transitioned to different places and worked in different areas. And so, like
Mhm.
for us college students, either coming out of college or finishing up college and like looking into jobs, looking into the work field, what advice do you have, whether it be transitioning or like waiting for a job opening or a long job search? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, be ready, like be persistent, like look at, like, if you want to go into this field, you know, take the time to pay attention to what people do in the field. If you want to do TV, understand, how video comes together. You want to do radio or audio or podcast, understand like how to be distinct and how you curry that audience. So that comes first, which is really understand how you want to attack it. You have to be tactical because it's competitive. There's lots of good people who want to do the same thing that you want to do for the same reasons, because it's sports and they have passion and it's fun and they can bring expertise and they can go home and talk to their friends about what they did, because we all have a little connection to it. But then I'd say, as you're looking, you have to be persistent, and you have to kind of, and also find the right job. You know what I mean? Find the job that when they talk to you, they're going, "Oh my God, this Sarah Lowe, we have to get her. She knew everything that we do, or she was excited about what we do, or even if she's never done it before, she kind of talked about, all I want to do is come in and learn so I can be, whoever I want to be you." That's what you say to an interviewer. I want to say you. I want to be you. That works. So I would say find the right position to apply for, because we all just, we can all just fire these darts in different directions, and then like, I didn't get a call back, and it's like, yeah, because maybe it wasn't the right match for you. And then these things are like soft skills, which is network. Like if you talk to someone like connects you with, "Hey, I connect you with this interview," call that person back. "Thanks, it was great." Or, "Hey, I'm not sure it did great, but what else should I do?" And then maybe they can supplement your interview by calling the folks and say, "Oh, Sarah's really great." So just, don't discount your network. People say it, they beat the drum like, "Oh, make sure you network properly." But that really is important, because your network is full of advocates, right? There are people who are going to advocate for you, right? So don't be shy about saying, "Hey, can you make a call for me?" But more importantly, don't think you can do it all on your own. Like, sometimes you can. Sometimes somebody will call you. Sometimes you provide a great interview. Sometimes you're really smart and your skills will be undeniable. At the same time, we all need a little help, a little,
We do.
somebody rooting for us, somebody saying, "Hey, pull Sarah Lowe's, resume or Neal Scarborough's resume out of that stack." And then, I think that's mostly it, other than, don't be afraid to try something you didn't think you were going to try. You know what I mean? Like you might say, "Hey, I applied for this job and I wanted to cover, Biola University and all that, sports, or there's a lot of schools around Biola. So all the schools that are down there, Cerritos College, whatever, I wanted to do this job." And then somebody talks to you and they go, "Yeah, well, we've got somebody, but, we do have this producer job, and, it's up early and it's this and that." And that's when your light bulb should go bing and say, "Hey, you know what? I started in one lane and I ended up in another lane." I mean, that's one thing that we all know about our careers and about project management and about, a production, is it always changes along the way. So just understand that you can be really focused, but something else may come into your sphere, and that's something you should take advantage of, because it's, whatever you were going to do isn't going to be how you thought anyway. So you might as well take a chance on another channel, another lane, another position. That's a lot, but that's really, that last one's probably most important, which is expect the unexpected and go for it when it comes. Yep.
Yeah, I like just like the flexibility. I mean, especially over the last year, kind of COVID and everything. I think that's just one topic that's going to be relevant in any time in life. Just if you need to take an exit off the freeway, you can take another on ramp right back on later.
Great, well said. I should have said it like that. It would have taken a lot less time. But yeah, that's a great analogy, which is the freeway's always running. So even if you get off, you can get right back on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just being
great
in the
park.
heart of LA, right? All those
Yes,
freeways there. That's why I
yes,
thought of it.
yes, yeah, yeah. You know well.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for your time today.
Well, great. This great job, Sarah. I think there's a reporting position in your future somewhere.
Thank
Good
you.
questions and good follow up. So a pleasure talking with you. And I'm Neal Scarbrough at Fox Sports. And if you won't beat Sarah, but if you think about it, track us down and maybe we can tell you more about careers here. Yep.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
All right. Take care, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.